As I walked down the hill towards Rudraprayag after my failed night, my body was cold and tired, and my thoughts were bitter. From every angle it felt like bad luck had betrayed me in a cruel and unfair way. Even though I do not deserve it, the hill people believe I have special powers when it comes to killing man-eaters. News of my journey had spread before I arrived. Even when I was still days away, people I met on the roads, and villagers watching from their fields and homes, greeted me with complete faith that I would succeed. Their belief was touching, but it also made me uncomfortable. The closer I came to Rudraprayag, the stronger their hopes became. If anyone had seen my arrival in Rudraprayag, they might have thought I was a great hero returning from war. But in reality, I was a man fully aware of my limits and deeply afraid that the task before me might be beyond my abilities. The area I had to cover was enormous, nearly 500 square miles of steep mountains and thick jungle. Finding and killing one leopard among possibly 50 in such land was an almost impossible task. The more I saw of the beautiful landscape, the less confident I felt about my mission. The local people did not share my doubts. To them, I was the man who had killed other man-eaters and had now come to free them from a terror they had lived under for 8 long years. Soon after my arrival, I had some incredible luck. Within hours, the leopard killed one of my goats. By staying out a little after dark, the animal followed me to the side of the Alkananda River where I believed it would be easier to deal with him. Soon after, the leopard killed an unfortunate woman. I had tried to stop further loss of human life, but I failed. That failure, however, gave me a rare chance to shoot the leopard, an opportunity that might not have come again for many months. The previous day, as I climbed uphill behind my guide, I carefully judged my chances of killing the leopard. I believed my odds were 2 to 1, even though the animal was known for never returning to its kills. The night was very dark, and I had no light for night shooting. Before leaving, Michael Keane had asked if I needed anything. I told him I only lacked a night shooting light and planned to order one from Calcutta. He insisted the government should provide it and promised that the best light available would be waiting for me in Rudraprayag. Unfortunately, it had not arrived in time. Though disappointed, I trusted my ability to see well in the dark, and on that alone I judged my chances at 2 to 1. Because so much depended on that night, I carried a spare rifle and a shotgun. From my hidden position on the haystack, I studied the scene, the short distance of the shot and the carefully hidden gun trap where the leopard would surely run if I wounded or missed him. My confidence rose, and I believed my chances were now 10 to 1. Then the storm came. Visibility dropped almost to 0. Without the electric light, I failed. Within hours, my failure would be known throughout the frightened villages. Physical effort, hot water, and food calmed bitter thoughts. By the time I reached the bottom of the hill, had a hot bath, and ate breakfast, I stopped blaming fate and began to think clearly. Regretting a missed shot was useless, just like crying over spilled milk. If the leopard had not crossed the Alkananda River, my chances were now better, because the electric shooting light had finally arrived. A brave runner had carried it through the storm, risking both the leopard and the terrible weather. My first task was to find out whether the leopard had crossed the river. I was sure he could only do this by using the suspension bridges. After breakfast, I set out to gather this information. I ruled out the Chakwa People Bridge. Even if the leopard had been badly frightened by the rifle shot fired close to his head, it would have been impossible for him to travel 14 miles in the few hours between the shot and daylight. So, I decided to focus my search on the Rudraprayag Bridge. There were 3 ways to reach the bridge, one path from the north, one from the south, and a well-used footpath coming directly from the Rudraprayag Bazaar. I carefully checked all 3 approaches. Then I crossed the bridge and walked half a mile along the Kedarnath Pilgrim Road. After that, I inspected the footpath where my goat had been killed 3 nights earlier. After examining everything, I was sure the leopard had not crossed the river. I then decided to carry out my plan, to close both bridges at night so the leopard would be trapped on my side of the river. The plan was simple. With the help of the bridge caretakers, who lived on the left bank near the bridge towers, it was certain to work. At first glance, closing the only way to cross the river for nearly 40 miles might seem unfair or extreme. But in reality, it was not. Because of the Leopard, no one dared to cross the bridges between sunset and sunrise. A kind of curfew already existed. To close the bridges, we blocked the 4-foot-wide openings in the towers with thorn bushes. These towers held the steel cables from which the wooden bridge was suspended. During the entire time the bridges were blocked with thorns or guarded by me, not a single person asked to cross them. I spent around 20 nights sitting on the tower on the left side of the Rudraprayag bridge. Those nights are unforgettable. The tower stood on a rock that stuck out over the river. It was about 20 feet tall. On top was a small platform, smoothed by constant wind, measuring roughly 4 feet wide and 8 feet long. There were 2 ways to reach the platform. One was by crawling along the steel cables, which passed through holes near the top of the tower and were anchored in the hillside about 50 feet away. The other was by climbing a very unstable bamboo ladder. I chose the ladder, because the cables were coated with a black, foul-smelling substance that stuck to the hands and permanently stained clothes. The ladder was made of 2 uneven bamboo poles tied together with thin sticks and string. It stopped 4 feet below the platform. Standing on the top rung, I had to lift myself up using only the friction of my palms against the smooth stone. Reaching the platform safely was an acrobatic and risky move, and it became more frightening each time I did it. All rivers in this part of the Himalayas flow from north to south, and the wind in these valleys changes direction with the sun. During the day, a wind called Dada blows from the south. At night, it blows from the north. When I first climbed onto the platform, the wind was usually calm. Soon after, it would begin as a light breeze. As darkness fell, it grew stronger, and by midnight it became a fierce gale. There was nothing to hold on to on the platform. Even when I lay flat on my stomach to reduce the force of the wind, I was in constant danger of being blown off. A fall would have sent me 60 feet down onto sharp rocks and then into the icy Alkananda River. Strangely, when I felt afraid of falling, I never thought about the rocks. I always thought about the cold water. As if the wind was not enough, I was also attacked by countless small ants. They crawled into my clothes and bit my skin, leaving painful sores. During the 20 nights I guarded the bridge, thorn bushes were not used. And in all that long time, only one living creature crossed the bridge, a jackal. Every evening, when I went to the bridge to take my position on top of the tower, 2 men came with me. They carried the ladder that I used to climb up to the platform. After helping me up and handing me my rifle, they took the ladder away. On the second evening, as we reached the bridge, we saw a strange man approaching from the Kedarnath side. He was dressed in long white robes. Something shiny was visible on his head and on his chest. In his hands, he carried a 6-foot-long silver cross. When he reached the bridge, the man knelt down. Holding the cross in front of him, he bowed his head in prayer. After a short while, he stood up, raised the cross high, took a few steps forward, and knelt again. He bowed his head, prayed, and raised the cross once more. In this way, he crossed the long bridge, praying every few steps. As he passed me, the man raised his hand in greeting. He seemed deeply lost in prayer, so I did not speak to him. I then noticed that the shining objects on his head and chest were also silver crosses. My companions were just as curious as I was. As the man climbed the steep path toward the Rudraprayag bazaar, they asked me who he was and which country he came from. It was clear he was a Christian, but since I had not heard him speak, I could only guess from his long black hair, thick beard, and facial features that he was from northern India. The next morning, after climbing down from the tower with the help of the ladder, I was walking toward the inspection bungalow. That was where I stayed during the day, when I was not visiting nearby or distant villages to gather news about the man-eater. On the way, I saw the same tall man in white standing on a large rock near the road, quietly watching the river. When I approached him, he stepped down from the rock and greeted me. I asked him what had brought him to this region. He replied that he had come from a faraway land to free the people of Garhwal from the evil spirit that was troubling them. I asked him how he planned to do this. He explained that he would make a model of a tiger. Through prayer, he would invite the evil spirit to enter the model. Then he would set it afloat on the Ganges, and the river would carry it to the sea, from where it could never return or harm people again. Although I doubted whether the man could truly succeed, I could not help but admire his faith and determination. Every morning, before I left the tower, he was already working. Every evening, when I returned, he was still at work, using split bamboo, string, paper, and cheap-colored cloth to build his tiger. One night, a heavy rainstorm destroyed the nearly finished structure. But he was not discouraged. The next morning, he began again, cheerfully singing as he worked. At last, the big day arrived. The tiger, about the size of a horse and resembling no real animal, was finally completed to his satisfaction. Who among the hill people does not love a celebration? When the tiger effigy, tied to a long pole, was carried down a steep path to a small sandy riverbank, more than 100 men joined the procession. Many beat gongs and blew long trumpets. At the river's edge, the effigy was untied from the pole. The man in white robes, wearing silver crosses on his head and chest and holding his long cross, knelt on the sand. Through deep and serious prayer, he called the evil spirit into the effigy. Then, with loud gongs, blaring trumpets, and offerings of sweets and flowers, the tiger effigy was released into the Ganges. The river quickly carried it away toward the sea. The next morning, the familiar white-robed figure was gone. When I asked some men who were going for an early bath in the river where he had come from and where he had gone, they replied, "Who can say where a holy man comes from, and who would dare ask where he goes?" These men, with sandalwood paste marks on their foreheads, were Hindus, as were all the others who had taken part in the ceremony. I believe that in India, where there are no passports or identity cards, and where religion holds such deep importance, a man in saffron robes, or carrying a begging bowl, or wearing silver crosses, could travel from the Khyber, pass to Cape Comorin, without ever being questioned about who he was or why he traveled. This is the 5th part of Man-Eating Leopard of Rudraprayag. We will be back with another part. Please like and subscribe to our channel, Man-Eaters, and don't forget to press the bell icon. We will soon be back. Till then, take care.